Hello everyone and welcome to our GP Strategies on Demand webinar. If you've downloaded or joined our webinars before, we are very glad to have you back, and if this is your first session with us, a big welcome goes out to you. We have a great discussion planned today on Flash conversion to HTML5. I'd now like to introduce you to today's presenters, Tom Pizer and Sesh Saraday. Tom Pizer is the Director of Learning Technologies and has over 20 years of experience in technical digital media field. He has an extensive background in a variety of creative and technical mediums, including digital media specification, production, testing, and implementation. A key aspect of Tom's responsibilities includes staying abreast of emerging technologies and in tune with the latest development methodologies, standards, and practices. Sesh Saraday is the Managing Director of Amantras, a division of GP Strategies, a premier digital content and e-learning services organization. Sesh has an advanced degree in corporate management from Indian School of Business, and Sesh and his team have won several prestigious awards for innovation in digital learning experiences. So with that, Tom, I'll go ahead and turn the session over to you.
Thank you, Kayla. So today we're going to talk about a very timely and kind of an exciting topic that's going on in the industry. So many of you will have heard probably recently or towards the end of 2017 recently that Flash is reaching its end of life. That is that Adobe is going to stop supporting it, and so are some of the major browser manufacturers. So we're going to talk a little bit today about what's happening with Flash and what the actual timeline is. We're also going to go over what that means to you as a learning organization. How will that lack of Flash browser support affect your Flash-based courses? And more importantly, what does that mean to your Flash-based course library? Whether that means that you've got courses that are developed wholesale inside of Flash, or you've got Flash objects inside of your courses. And then we're going to talk about some strategies to support your Flash-based course library conversion and how you can start preparing now. So what's happening with Flash? Well, Adobe made a major announcement back in 2017 that by 2020 they're going to be ending support for the Flash Player plugin. That was followed up by the major browser manufacturers, Google and Microsoft, that they will disable the plugin by default in their browsers during the year of 2019, so probably closer to the end of 2019. That doesn't mean that the browsers won't be able to display Flash, but it's no longer going to work out of the box. So those learners who encounter those Flash-based assets or those Flash-based courses are going to have to manually enable those browsers to view that content. So what that means to you is that you're likely going to see an increase in, of service-related questions and requests from your learners on how to prepare for this eventuality. You're probably also going to be talking with your IT departments about what this means to your learner base and to your learning organization. So how does the end of Flash Player browser support affect Flash-based learning products? Your learning products developed in Flash or as a Flash exported format are going to stop working at the end of this cycle. This means that courses in products such as Storyline or Captivate, if they were exported first to play as a defaulting to the Flash browser, you may encounter some problems with that. In addition, if those weren't exported by default as HTML, one of the things that you may not know about that converted content is that not all Flash interactions that work out of the box with some of these products actually translate very well to HTML. Source files with these products will still be openable with Flash and these Flash-based tools. So that means that if you've got the source materials for this, you've got some recourse. You've got the ability to convert that content now and begin looking at that content in some of those HTML-based environments, and even if you're considering the move to mobile at the same time, testing it inside of those devices as well. Courses can be assessed and prioritized and prepared for conversion or another format. So what do you do now with your Flash-based course library? So as we said, after 2020, these courses are no longer going to work for your learners. So right now, as we're entering 2018, it's a great time to begin by reviewing your course library and identifying courses that continue to be offered in a new format. So courses that you can possibly consider converting, courses that you can possibly consider retiring. Review those content update needs. This is a good time to take a look at those courses, not only for format, but also for content. And as I had said a little bit on the previous slide, you can begin to address mobile learner needs for modifying the layout to take advantage of this new modern layout and modern design. So if you're thinking about making the move to mobile, this is a good time to do it as well. So some of the things that you're going to want to consider, there's some primary steps to converting your Flash course content library. The first thing that you're going to need to do is you're going to need to assess your current state. This means taking a look at your content portfolio and evaluating, what the makeup of that portfolio is. How many of these courses are actually Flash-based? How many of these courses have Flash-based content inside of them? And you're going to want to get a good spreadsheet put together so that you can identify and then begin to catalog these courses and then begin to arrange your conversion process. And we're going to show some examples of some of those spreadsheets. You're going to want to determine your current browser compatibility and LMS compatibility. So you're going to want to take a look at the browsers that you've currently got out there, and you're going to want to evaluate, does that mean that we're also facing a browser update? Does that mean that we're moving to supporting new devices as well? You're going to want to confirm access to the source code for these courses, and this is kind of a major one. Your course library very likely has tens or even maybe hundreds of courses inside of them. You're going to have some legacy courses that were developed in old formats, and you're going to have newer courses that were perhaps developed in more modern course development tools. You're going to want to take a look at these and evaluate how many of these kind of operate the same, how many were built with similar templates. So then you can begin grouping these into different methodologies for converting the content. We'll talk about that in a moment. The next thing that you're going to want to do is take this spreadsheet and then begin to prioritize courses for transition and transformation. Some of these courses you're going to discover, if you go through your LMS records, probably haven't been accessed that much. And you may want to deprioritize those courses or maybe even end-of-life those courses. You're going to want to take a look at some of the most critical courses. These are some of maybe your compliance-based courses, and you're going to want to prioritize those and maybe take a look at where you can economize on those by doing several at one time. And in some cases, you may want to have a separate work stream for some of the low-hanging fruit. That is, some courses that were developed in modern tools that journeymen can go through and pretty much convert these courses for you. Next thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to develop a conversion plan. So you're going to want to start looking at what that batching looks like. Do you need to set up more than one conversion stream? Typically, that's what we'll end up doing ourselves, is we'll end up creating multiple streams and focus groups on one of those several streams. You're going to want to align with any planned maintenance and scheduled updates, also with some of those priorities, such as compliance-based courses. And then this is a very important one. You're going to want to conduct user testing across devices to confirm successful conversion. Can't forget this step, and absolutely, you're going to need to positively test these courses each time one is deployed to the LMS and ensure that it does indeed work in those mobile environments if you decided to move to mobile as well. This is why it's really good to take this opportunity whenever you can to build out a unified course framework and perhaps get as many of these courses working into this unified course framework as possible. You're going to want to then convert courses according to the conversion plan, perhaps starting with some of the low-hanging fruit, perhaps starting with those compliance courses, and definitely building a common interface or common course development structure. So this is what your course conversion methods may look like. There's three primary methods based off of the type of content that's available. This content that is available, in some cases, like we had said, are courses that are developed in a commercial framework, and that lends itself to the first method, that is a course upgrade. So you've already got the source files, you've already got that content broken up in an easily accessible fashion, and then you can just do a conversion where you're modifying some of the activities that were once Flash-based into HTML5-based courses or interactions, and then export that, and then test those across your new modern browser or device environments. The next is course conversion. This is where you may have the course output files, that is, perhaps you might have SCORM libraries, or you may have the Flash files. Now in this case, whether you've got SCORM packaged courses or you've got Flash files, you may have to do a little bit more rooting around here in order to discover all of your media assets. If you've had to, in some cases, decompile a compiled course or a Flash course, that's where you're going to look for course similarities, where some of these courses were developed in such a way that the content, the media files, and the text were abstracted away from the source. So in those cases, hopefully we've got some systematically developed XML, so we can kind of strip out and port over very easily that text content. Or perhaps you've got media elements such as MPEG-3 files or FLV files. Then you can convert and reuse those files in a redeveloped, in that common HTML5 architecture that you will have developed or that we will have developed. The next is a course rebuild, and that's a situation where you can strip out some of the course content, but some of the course content has to be replicated inside of a new environment. When we're looking at a situation like a course rebuild, we're really never talking about having to rebuild the course from the ground up if we can get some of those resource materials and reuse some of those resource materials. This is perhaps the most time-intensive conversion of a course, but what we're looking to do is see if we've got enough of these types of courses where building a unified template and then building a workflow process in order to manually manage that conversion process will mitigate that higher order conversion process. In some cases, it just may be that you've got a one-off course that was developed in a legacy program and you do end up having to rebuild a course from the ground up. That is fewer and further between in the conversion spectrum, but you need to evaluate whether it's going to take you more time to build a conversion process than it is to actually, fully rebuild a course. Another thing to take into consideration. This is an example of a course inventory library. These two examples are very similar, but you can see some of the things that we're evaluating as we're reviewing these courses. We're looking to gather a content ID. This will be a content ID typically inside of your LMS. The level of priority that this course represents in terms of urgency for production. You're going to want to have things in here such as whether or not the source files are available, which business this course supports, where that course content is available. If you know it, what authoring tool was used to develop that course, the output method for the LMS, the level and complexity of interactions that are inside of that. And one of the things that I might suggest to you in addition is maybe don't take this on yourself, or don't take this on as, as say, a smaller learning organization, but provide these materials out to your businesses so that the businesses can also participate, if they happen to manage some of their own learning content, in gathering information on where those source materials are. Source material that you don't know where to find, maybe those business units do know where to find it, or maybe they know where to find it from some of the original vendors. So how can GP Strategies help support your Flash course library conversion? Well, first off, we have already anticipated some of these challenges. As a matter of fact, the conversion of Flash libraries is something that we've been going through over the past couple of years as we've made the move towards a more modern interactive development approach. We've seen this as we've built out our practices for LMS ready for content conversion, and have been able to easily adapt our conversion process and our localization process to a Flash-based one. Our creative teams have the right set of tools. That is, our teams know how to evaluate some of these content libraries and pick out which types of objects are reusable. We also have some decompiling tools, and most of the modern, most of the commercial vendor-based tools that are out there for converting some of these courses. So if it comes to Captivate, if it comes to Storyline, if it comes to Lector-based content that's got Flash content embedded in it, or if it's Flash content from the ground up, we've seen most everything, and we can help you work through this. Our programming teams are experts in identifying the most efficient ways to redeploy and rebuild your Flash-based media. If it makes sense to convert something, we'll be able to make recommendations there. If it makes more sense to build a more automated conversion process, we're experts in building those conversion processes. And if it comes down to it, and if we evaluate your library and say, look, there are X number of courses that quite simply need to be rebuilt and need to be prioritized, we're able to define that for you early. To support this work, our teams have developed a systematic methodology to ensure that your entire catalog is evaluated and is the workflow, the most optimal workflow is deployed to facilitate that content conversion. So some of the things that you can do right away, where you can start to really prepare for this eventuality, is first to start with an assessment. Many of our clients have started this themselves. Some of our clients have brought us in to support this. But we recommend starting with an assessment to develop an action plan. So maybe taking some of those spreadsheets and start evaluating your course content. Start evaluating in your LMS what content is used the most. Cost can vary based on the number of courses, and you're going to want to maybe build this into phases. Our typical assessment ranges from 8K to 12K, depending on your content inventory and the extent of your content. That is, how much of your, how many courses you've got and how complex some of these courses are. And we can certainly work to help assess, prioritize, and guide you along the way. Sesh?
Thank you, Tom. So I'm going to take up from here, from where Tom left off, give you a more idea of, at the top, at a very high level, what the processes are. It's more visual, but also talk about an interesting project we did. It's a mega project, and what came out of it. Eventually, it's a very complex project. So first, let me talk about, at a very high level, there are about 4 key, in the workflow, primarily analysis, estimations, development, and deployment. So typically, if you want to do it, we have to go through all of this. This is building on top of what Tom said already, except that there are a lot of small things you have to go through all the detail to really understand and give you a proper estimate, or and complete your plan and goal of making those Flash-based courses more modern, or just a simple upgrade, or whatever it may be. So this is a very high-level overview of what the typical workflow will be like. So how do we work, right? So these are just some examples of working models where, it could be primarily resource-based, depending on if you had 20 courses that you've already identified and gone through some of the processes and understand that you need these really just straightforward conversion and you just want a bunch of resources. That's a model we could do. The other is what I like to call a hybrid model where, you need a mix of different things, partly upgrade, partly rebuild the entire courses because you don't have the source files from the original source where it is built out, and then also maybe even upgrade it, right? So it could be a mix of many things. So in the next few slides, I'm going to talk about a major airline that we finished a project for, which I described as a mega project, where clearly it is a mix of all of these things. So these are two ways that we could work. And so this is again, like I said, a major airline is all about technical training. So some of it doesn't change. Aircraft engines don't change for years. Maintenance and repair manuals don't change. It's a very highly technical course content, which is typically delivered to technicians, so on. So these are pretty long courses as well, 300 hours, 600 hours. Go on for months and very technical detail. Right, so they have a lot of animation. There's a lot of complexity to all of this, and all of these are built in different times, right? So eventually, as the years evolved, they kept adding stuff from the beginning of origin of Flash to completely where tools could start producing Flash, like Articulate or Captivate or some of these things. So it was a mix of everything. So the challenge there in converting these courses was we're dealing with different sets of content, right? Eventually some where the source files were provided, just were too old for us to do anything with. The others were, where they had no source files and so on, so on. So the challenge is quite a bit. You'll see some of them in these slides. The biggest thing is what they wanted to do with it is eventually make it a modern learning, right? Eventually, like Tom said before, in this case, they really wanted to make it, the state of the art. Eventually, it works on mobile devices. It works on tablets, mobiles, handheld smartphones as well as tablets and things like that, as well as adapt the newest HTML5 technology. The challenge again was how do we bring all these heavily animated content, right? Eventually, rich interactive medium, all of this. So this is how they wanted it to be, where the people could, and they also. You'll see as I keep moving forward that they wanted to build micro learning and eventually smaller pieces, because when typically when people build Flash courses before, they'd all be bundled into one single program. So it's very difficult to put out small pieces while you go through a single interface, user interface with a single menu. It is all bundled into one, unlike how courses are built today, where they're built this small micro learning objects, and then the objects become lessons, and the lessons become modules. So that's this is the whole conversion project, which is a mix of everything, right? So that's what we did, and this is an example of what we actually delivered. At the end of it is 5,000 micro-learning segments, 15,000 different types of animations, interactions, right? That's another challenging thing, because Flash was built at a time when everything was driven on a computer screen, right? So the mouse and probably not even a touchpad as some of the computers have now. Now, keeping that in mind and changing all of that to a touch screen interface or mobile interface, working with 4 inches of space, all these are challenges. Again, taking all those interactions, which are probably interactivities, to measure knowledge, changing those, that's something we delivered. Again, it is a complete dual language, right? Again, German and English with audio. So that was the other challenge. Again, we did all of this. This is an executed project. I'm just showing you the size of this and how we executed it. It took us over 15 months, but successfully delivered today. And they have a pretty robust program which we converted the old Flash legacy stuff into all of this, right? So this is a good example to see what all you could get out of it. Probably, like we said in the earlier slides between me and Tom, eventually, depending on what your need is, if it's a straightforward conversion or you see this as an opportunity to convert these to smaller pieces, a lot of this can be done. This is a good example of what we did or what we potentially can do. So overall, this is again summarizing some of the things we put into this new program, which is, create a learning path for them, sets of curated content that they could reuse and eventually push it out to different sets of devices. Again, there's some gamification that we added, which wasn't there earlier. And they got this whole micro-learning complete piece in. And then the best part is manageable content, right? So eventually we also gave them a custom tool where they could update and manage the content themselves. So, like Flash earlier, you had to learn programming, you need to know some of these things. But here we built a simple what you see, what you get interface, which means, as you type, just like you would do on Word or PowerPoint, you could change the content or imagery or something else. So we gave them a whole content management system, custom content management system, along with the changed content. And again, all of this is responsive. This is just a quick summary for you all to see this sort of work we've done and overall what can be done out of this. So again, some of the technologies and tools that are typically deployed today is the custom HTML5, Captivate, Storyline, Articulate. So we use all these tools in different types of technologies. Eventually, we also have a framework of our own, which we help to convert themed, where the content is pretty much is very useful when there's straightforward conversion. If it's all themed and sort of similar standard user interface, we use a custom framework, which we actually even held a patent for a while. So these are some of the tools and technologies that we use to convert. And I turned over to Kayla. That's pretty much it for me. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you, Sesh, and thank you, Tom, for your great insights and presentation. I know we only scratched the surface of Flash conversion, so we definitely encourage all of those who are listening in to continue the conversation with our presenters beyond this webinar. Their contact info is available on the slide deck here. Everyone should have access to a PDF download as well, which is available on the on-demand web page. We do hope that you join us for more webinar sessions and on-demand downloads. Please visit our webinars page at gpstrategies.com for a list of upcoming events. Thank you.